in our community, which a place like this is unique, to restore the Lundys name, but be able to generate economically enough to survive. I think it's key. We have to give it the opportunity. Of course there are going to be people who object. They can't get their name in the papers if they don't. And that's what you really have to look at. I'm not 100% sure there's no violations, but from what they're telling me and what I understand, they're correcting it. They're doing the right things. And we've got to watch it and see the progression. I mean, they brought us into this place to see what they've done. They're not hiding it. It's here. And I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of buildings, a lot of work. It happens to be exceptional, what they've done.
Thank you. Just one more thing so everybody understands the concept here. You will have almost 300 seats between the outside, the cafe, and the upstairs. So yes, we are a restaurant, we're a cafe, and we're a gourmet market. If there's any objections, why don't we do that? Why don't I answer any questions that you may have as far as why we should not be here, why we should not do something. Yes?
Just a question about the restaurant. What experience have the people here been in the restaurant business in a class restaurant?
What experience do we have? We hired 2 seafood chefs to run our restaurant upstairs that are out of Manhattan. These are our menus here. You have our cafe menu.
I'm asking you, what experience have you had? I haven't seen experience in running a restaurant. This is your first restaurant, am I correct?
Mine? No, I don't.
The owners, whoever's running this now, first restaurant.
No. Their other location is not a sit-down restaurant. It's takeout.
Well, that's not a restaurant.
Okay.
What would you? Not a takeout.
Okay. So what is it that you're asking me? What experience do we have?
If I come in with, and I'm going to open a restaurant, I know what I'm doing. I bring in people who know how to restaurant. I bring in chefs who can cook so the people will eat the food.
That's what I just said. I'm bringing it. We brought in 2 chefs from Manhattan, seafood restaurant chefs. We'll do the design. They'll set the kitchen. This is the menu that they came up with. I'm not understanding your question.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. Yes.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'd like to know how you seem like a nice and sincere guy. But what makes you different than all the other ones that have come and blatantly lied to our face, saying that we're going to promise you next the best of sliced bread and we're going to change the community, it's going to be the best thing for you. We've had so many people come in the community with businesses and building and come in front of the community board, pull the wool over their eyes, and then sell the rest of the community that idea like it was the best thing to slice bread. The next thing you know, it's all failed. They take their money, they leave, we're stuck with an abandoned building, a sore eye in the community. What makes you different?
What makes me different is that how can we pack this up and leave? How much money do you see invested into this building? We're on a lease. We don't own this property. So we need to run this business. We won't even generate a profit on here for 3 years. You know, we're not a franchise. It's family owned. Nobody is going to come in and invest this amount of money in this building and put up with the opposition. 8 months into this project, we started getting our opposition. If we would have got it the first month or second month, we would have been out of your community. We would have been gone. Believe me, what we went through with certain people on this project.
But you
have $7 million invested here. We are not upping, packing up, and leaving. We came into this building. Nobody in this property, in your landmark property, has spent the amount of money that we have spent. Nobody. You have marble floors. You have granite counters. You have top-of-the-line husband. You have a kitchen. You have a parking lot. And the amount of money we're spending on the outside of your building, that's not even ours. That belongs to Pappas. So no, we are not packing up and moving. We are 16,000 square feet. So I understand your concern about people coming here and pulling the wool over your head. This is why I brought everybody here, because of the he said, she said. I wanted you to see it. I mean, you have Tiffany Lane. We are not leaving. We are not leaving. The only way we're going to leave here, if we don't make it here and they lock the doors on us because we can't pay the bills. Yes?
I'd like to make a few comments. I'm one of the people, along with the Plum Beach Civic Group, and many people who are not even alive anymore. Like, I can rattle off the names, whether it's Barbara McCord or Kay Hemmedinger or Adele Donnell, or even your treasurer and people like Helen Randazzo and Angie Ciccaroni's husband and others, including Angie, who's still alive, and her sister, who are all friendly with Lundy. all knew him on a personal basis, and we worked 6.5 years to landmark this building. And to just give you some facts, first of all, it reopened in December 95, not 92. It had 3 operators. The first one, Tam, did a great job and everybody loved it, and they did spend a lot of money. I don't really think that they came in and spent millions of dollars on a few-year lease. Obviously something happened. It's called 9/11. They had a lot of money invested in another restaurant in the city down by the World Trade Center, which kind of sunk them. And as a result, it sunk this place. So they ended up selling to someone else, and the rest we all know. So it's not quite what you think as far as a big restaurant making it. They didn't have 1,000 seats. They had roughly 825 with the main dining room, several hundred. And then catering upstairs for about 250. The reason why I'm telling you all this, I'm also an attorney that represents hundreds of restaurants all over the city. And the Landmarks Commission did know about this place. Maybe, Barbara, you got an intern that day, but I did in fact call many times about the sign violations and the others. So it's not as if nobody called. And what I got from one of the assistant commissioners was that enforcement is an issue when their funding is cut and they have thousands and thousands of landmark buildings all over the city, and signs can always be removed, and as long as it wasn't hurting the building itself. We weren't on the priority list, and since nobody else really called and bugged them, and we didn't make a big deal about it, we didn't want to go crazy, which is a whole different thing than what we're here today about. I myself, known from our board of directors at Bay Improvement Group, and I don't believe anybody in this room is here to come and criticize you, or criticize your money spent, or criticize that you're well-intended and trying to do good things. The problem I have is that from the time I stepped into my first Plum Beach meeting in 1983, it was drilled into my head by Barbara McCord, Margaret McCord, all the old timers about the special district, and all about Lundys in the history, and it seemed like we just spent forever on that. Why do we have the special district or landmark if it's just come in and you spend a lot of money and it looks really great, and I heard what everyone here said, and therefore somehow that justifies that we look the other way. I understand about the feelings and that you can't let it go, but it's only been a few years, and landmarks are supposed to be for hundreds of years, if not forever, because if it's a few years of impatience and not balancing that with future generations when we're gone, then using your argument, anybody that comes into any rundown landmark building anywhere in the city of New York and fixes it up and fixes up the interior and the exterior, makes it look beautiful and spends millions of dollars, then therefore they should be allowed to maybe twist the law a little bit or bend it. And nobody here wants to see you fail. Nobody wants to see Lundys fail. But it is difficult to sit here and listen that on one hand you're putting a restaurant, which everyone will applaud, and on the other hand you got a market, which you're going to say, well, I'm kind of doing both, but if the zoning says you can't do it, then why should you be allowed to do that? I have a problem with that, because then it's setting a precedent for the whole rest of the city of New York. So, and as far as the development that was mentioned, there was a speech made about all the development here and violations. I'm curious what violations of the special district have happened in the last 7 years of anything significant, because if there is, I think we all would have known about it. Certainly the civic group would have known about it. So I'm wondering, you know, I mean, there's been a lot of developments. We all disagree with the co-ops and condos and the destruction of the flavor and all that, but the zoning is the zoning is the zoning, and there is a use group, and it does describe what can go in here, and again, it's nothing personal, but if a market's not allowed, I think that's what the problem is with some people, and that's what I think you really need to address. How we just sort of go, okay, otherwise you've got to sell a lot of baskets to make your rent, I'll tell you that. Maybe this whole ceiling has to be sold once a month, I would think.
All right, my question is, you're an attorney, I agree with everything you said. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but is not the Sheepshead Bay Special District, the laws that were written, or the zoning that was written, an interpretation?
No, what makes the speech, I'll give you a quick 2-second course.
Okay.
There are 3 kinds of special use districts in the city of New York. 1973, they put them all over the city. Some have to do with things like Ocean Parkway, Chinatown, Gramercy Park, City Island. And Sheepshead Bay were one of a few in the whole city, which is called a special use district. What that does is not just aesthetics. In this case, a restaurant's excluded. But in Sheepshead Bay Special District, the 2 things are square footage. You cannot be more than 35-foot frontage as far as that goes, and no more than 3,500 square feet. Restaurants are excluded. And then there are uses. Each sub-district, which makes us a little complicated, from here all the way down to the end of the bay, has sub-districts, A through G. In this sub-use district, there are specified specific uses that you can put in. So that doesn't